This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. What a week it has been. Even with all the Meghan and Harry nonsense polluting the media, they couldn't manage to take attention away from Donald Trump. Starting off the week, we had Emmanuel Macron coming to D.C., followed by Keir Starmer, who came to kiss the ring, who looked like a total jackass. And then yesterday's showdown with Zelensky. Boy, that was so delicious. Ever since USAID got caught with its pants down, the curtain's been fully yanked back, exposing just how rotten the core of the U.S. government has become, as well as the people associated, like Meghan and Harry. These past 4 years, in all honesty, were brutal. A collective kick in the teeth, not just for us Americans, but for the whole Western world. And I think we can all agree on that. I also think that we can agree that Meghan's messy attempts have been an ice-cold bucket of water on our heads that snapped us out of this psychological brainwashing and outright robbery we've all been sleepwalking through. Now, when we talk about this woman we're calling Meghan Markle and her whip sidekick Harry, they actually are the perfect stooges in this globalist mess, prancing around like they're hot shit. Meghan is literally the ultimate giveaway, a screaming red flag of all the bias and mind games these elitists pull to grab everything from you. When we look at all these World Economic Forum government leaders, we are literally drowning in a sea of narcissistic sociopaths masquerading around as something we should all be worshiping. Meghan and Harry's so-called brand, I would have to say, is definitely the face for these dangerous threats to humanity. I mean, what a journey this has been so far in learning about how corrupt and evil they all are. And trust me, we haven't even scratched the surface. I mean, we still have a long way to go, but it's positive to see more and more people waking up. I think what makes me really happy to see is that those that have been on this journey with me for the last couple of years are now realizing that you're actually ahead of the curve, because the things that the media are now coming out with and talking about, you already know about. And I love seeing on social media, many of you are having really intelligent conversations, educating others around what these two have been up to that goes beyond the superficial stories that we see on a daily basis. For me, as a content creator, I find that really cool because it shows me that the content that I'm putting out to you guys is holding some value. And it's satisfying to know that in some small way, my voice is making a difference for the better. This past week was literally epic, and I apologize for slacking on videos, but so many awesome things are happening in the US right now, and as many of you know, I am juggling building a new space to talk about the things that are happening because, frankly, I'm thrilled to see the tide turning for the better. Now, as much as I can't stand looking at these two anymore, we still have to pay attention to them because until there is accountability, they're going to continue to keep doing what they have been doing for the past 5 years, but they're just going to do it a little more discreetly. These two were successful, along with the radical left, participating and interfering with the 2020 election. And they are responsible for this regime change that made Americans suffer for 4 years under the Biden administration. These two are not going to stop. And it's why I keep digging into what they're desperate to hide, shining a spotlight on their schemes, because if we don't call them out, they're going to pull this crap again. I think moving forward on each video, I want to remind people of the dangers that Harry and Meghan pose should, God forbid, Harry gets his IPP status back. If these two are immune from any type of crime or criminal prosecution, then no telling how far they will go in abusing that kind of privilege. And we know that Meghan will abuse it. So do the kid a favor and hit that like button to help with the algorithm. It's the least you can do to make sure that we're spreading awareness and that, this is very much on top of people's minds, not Meghan's stupid cooking show. Prince Harry, the authoritarian tyrant, does believe that he is part of this so-called ruling class and should be telling everybody how they should be living their lives, especially your children. Recently, at a summit that he was paid to speak at, this holier-than-thou, I'm above the law arrogance is on full display.
And change makers. How do we invest in our shared future to solve the challenges we face today as a divided society? Now, as a dad, this has me constantly looking for solutions. And as a man who was born into a life of service, I recognize that with power and a platform comes huge responsibility. And these days, I am determined to find and invest in solutions.
It doesn't sit well with me that he is acknowledging in this speech that he has some kind of power. So according to the website from the Office of the Duke and Duchess of Suing and Sex, it says here, at the 2025 Upfront Summit, a gathering of over 1,000 leading investors, entrepreneurs, and technology visionaries, Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, delivered a thought-provoking address on the crucial intersection of business, technology, and philanthropy in driving meaningful global change. In his keynote, the Duke shared valuable insights from his personal journey and outlined his vision for the future, emphasizing the need for business to adopt a service-oriented approach to their operations, while recognizing the significant impact of philanthropy and nonprofit organizations in addressing social challenges. He underscored the limitations of these models, which often focus on addressing the symptoms rather than the underlying causes. So during this paid speaking engagement, this asshole decides to go ahead and attack Donald Trump. Prince Harry told the audience that he'd never been allowed to vote, and he was not cornered by a belief of blue or red. And then he added, now this would be a great time to talk about how a sickness in leadership across sectors from politics to tech can have a detrimental effect on millions, if not billions of people. And then Harry bangs on and says, when service to others is sacrificed for personal gain, when basic morals and empathy are abandoned in favor of power and control. But I'm not going to get into all of that now. This man is such a little bitch. Just like his wife. Remember when Meghan went on Oprah and she painted the whole royal family as racist because she didn't want to tell Oprah who was the one who allegedly made those comments, which I now personally don't believe the comments were ever made. But in any case, remember when she said, oh, that would be disparaging to them. Come on. Seriously. And then to say when service to others is sacrificed for personal gain. Service to others. What have Meghan and Harry been doing this whole entire time? They have been profiting off the backs of people who are suffering in their philanthropy and humanitarianism. And on top of it, trying to take away other people's freedoms here in America. So if this guy is going to go on and attack Donald Trump, well, I would love to see the two of them in a room together. I really would, because this guy is so delusional. Does he not understand how badly he hurt the Queen with what he was doing? Harry is the last one to be talking about basic morals and empathy, especially what he has done to his own family. I think he needs to sit this one out. Like, what world is this guy living in? And who is the one that wrote this speech? Was it Meghan? Was it James Holt? Was it former Obama aide Miranda Barbeau? Because it's quite odd that he would bring up the fact that he's never been allowed to vote and not cornered by a belief in blue or red. Like, why would you need to say that unless you need to deflect away from being accused of aligning and being in bed with the Biden regime? I mean, there's no other reason for it. And here he's like having to make that point when we all know very well that he has been in bed with the Democrat. I mean, here is Senator Chris Coons, Democrat from Delaware, speaking at Prince Harry's event for the Halo Trust when he was here in New York last year. This is the same senator that participated in the retreat Harry held for African parks. This is the same senator that pushed Congress to pass legislation pertaining to conservation in Africa and getting funds and money. And this is the same senator who was responsible for putting that COSA bill together and getting it passed. So yeah, I would think that Harry does have a preference for blue over red. Harry is such a liar. You really can't hate these people enough.
It is indeed a good afternoon and such a blessing and joy to be with you. Prince Harry, thank you for your leadership, for your heart, for your vision, for sustaining the legacy of your mother, and for inspiring a whole new generation around the world to be engaged in this critical work against the scourge of landmines.
So as a senator, Chris Coons makes $174,000 a year, and he has been a senator for the past 15 years. So if you do the math, if he is working for the people and doing his civil service, he technically has made over the course of 15 years in his annual salary. We're looking at maybe 1.7 after taxes spread out across 15 years. So, it makes you scratch your head when you see that his net worth is almost $12 million. You got to ask yourself this question. Are they really serving the people? So now you can understand why these demon rat Democrats in D.C., as well as these globalist liberal leftists, are all pissed off at Donald Trump. It's because he is stopping the theft of American wealth being redistributed into the hands of these greedy, evil human beings. Look, we all know that these elitist parasites don't believe the garbage that's coming out of their mouths. It's rules for thee, not for me. And while they get to continue free market capitalism, the rest of us are being forced into this socialist, Marxist, and even fascist societies. Thank God Donald Trump is our president and capitalism is still alive and well, but you can't really say that for the rest of the world at this moment. So even though Harry's PR is making it look like this summit was a spontaneous event where he just popped in and was given the mic to get up on stage to ramble off his bullshit. It wasn't. A week before the event, people were getting notification that Harry was going to be a guest speaker, as you can see here from this post dated February 20th. So a week prior, people knew that Harry was going to be showing up to this, whatever it is. Make no mistake, this was a paid engagement where Harry was scheduled and on the books for. There was no surprise drop-in. We know that these two don't do anything unless they're getting money. I do think, though, that the articles were released in order to piggyback off of the king giving an invite to Donald Trump just to keep Harry in the headlines. They could have easily have waited till the next day to release that he was there and gave this speech, but they chose to release it at the time that they did because it was strategic. Another strategic move that was made was not broadcasting or making a big deal about Kamala Harris also being at this summit and her holding a private meeting with a few people, of which I'm pretty sure that Harry was a part of that discussion, since we all know that he has been trying to rebuild the online space, and what better way to do it than to get control of those algorithms, which is what Harry and Meghan have been pushing for. In addition, let's not forget who they awarded their 2025 Archewell Fugazi Public Charity Digital Justice Award to this year. That was Dr. Alondra Nelson, who was a deputy director in the Biden White House. She also was Kamala Harris's right-hand woman in overseeing the AI Digital Bill of Rights framework. So, hey, Harry is there. They just gave this award to this woman, and Kamala's sitting down talking about AI. The chances of him being in that room are pretty high. And this is a perfect example of how the media takes our attention and brings it over there when we should be looking over here. There is a reason for why Harry's propagandists are not reporting on it, and that's because they know it will look bad for him, especially since he just got done saying that he's neither blue or red. I think, that was the dumbest thing for him to say, in my opinion. I'm telling you, these wretched, evil human beings are not going to stop. You can bet that Harry and Meghan and the whole cabal are currently plotting and scheming, just like what they did back in 2016 leading up to the 2020 election. So this is why you can't take your eyes off of these people, especially if the rumors are true that Kamala might run again in 4 years. So, we can't really rest and take our eye off the ball until there's accountability held for the damage that these two have caused and will continue to cause if we don't make noise about it. Now, happening on the same day, Harry gets up there to make the veil attack against our president. Franny Marquez, Franny Marquez from Colombia, Meghan's bestie, she gets stripped of her equality role. Not stripped of her vice presidency, but stripped of her role that received all these funds from USAID. Now, for those that have been watching this channel for a while and have seen the videos that I've done on the psychological warfare that has been unleashed onto us, as well as the videos that I did pertaining to the Colombia trip, I did speak about where the funds were coming from and noting that Franny Marquez is a USAID darling. Now, during the Biden regime, Colombia, as well as Nigeria, Turkey, Georgia, all on the list for regime change and deploying this globalist approach. So Franny Marquez definitely was financed by the CIA, and she had been waiting this whole time to possibly do a coup d'etat to defeat President Petro. And this is what the United States was trying and setting her up for. But now, last week, Doge cut all the funding off from Colombia in these BS, equality, equity, LGBT, Afro community, women's empowerment crap. And now she had no more money to fund this coup d'etat in order to take over as president, to be the puppet for the globalists. And I think that's why Petro stripped her of this title. And I do think that when the time comes, she's going to be done with being VP. Let me just say that Meghan and Harry were paid a lot of money, not only for Colombia, but also for Nigeria. And the way that I believe this laundering is happening is, you remember all those shell companies that Meghan and Harry have set up? You know, how, another YouTuber had said that the reason why they have so many is to keep the various business deals that they've done separately, because if one gets sued, then they don't lose all of it. No, that's bullshit. This is how they're funneling the money. The money is going into various accounts that probably are going offshore. In this case, when we look at USAID, and I did some digging, and I do believe that I found what Harry and Meghan had been paid. Now, today I had been going through the federal spending database and looking at awards that were given to Colombia, Nigeria, and other countries that Harry and Meghan just so happened to vacation in. And I came across this award for $3.5 million. But what stuck out at me was that this $3.5 million, even though it was going directly to Colombia, went via route the office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Switzerland. In any case, I decided to dig further. So I opened up to see what this was all about in its description. Let me show you. This grant or award money was going to be applied in Colombia for this purpose. As a project contribution, this activity will support OHCHR's mandate. OHCHR has identified 6 thematic pillars that guide their work to promote and protect all human rights, advance sustainable development through human rights. OHCHR will provide technical assistance for the integration of international human rights standards into public policies related to rural areas, with a focus on issues such as the restitution, access, use, and ownership of land and territory by campesinos, Afro-Colombians, and indigenous peoples. Additionally, OHCHR will collaborate closely with the private sector, civil society, and the state to implement the UN's framework on business and human rights, enhance equality, and counter discrimination. OHCR will continue to assist minority groups, including indigenous peoples, Afro-Colombians, women, and LGBT, to increase their participation in decision-making processes. In addition, the office will seek to support national authorities to combat discrimination by ensuring the adoption and compliance with adequate policy frameworks, enhance participation, and protect civic space. OHCHR will continue to work with Colombian state institutions and civil society organizations to strengthen their capacity to engage safely in constructive dialogue and promote participatory decision-making scenarios. specifically on public policies resulting from the implementation of the peace accord, increased implementation of the outcomes of international human rights mechanisms. OHCHR will continue to provide technical support to civil society organizations, individuals, and UN entities to submit their contributions to treaty bodies, special procedures, and universal periodic reviews. OHCHR will continue to prepare and disseminate its annual report, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now, as you can see, it's pretty generic, using the traditional language of the UN or the WEF, where you hear sustainable development, you've got diversity, we've got inclusion, we've got minorities, women, LGBTQIA, and then you have the public-private partnership. So saying that they will work closely with the private sector, civil society, and state to implement the UN's framework, which we know Harry and Meghan support. They say it all over their website. So now when you look at how they made the transactions, they broke this $3.5 million into two transactions. The first transaction was for $1.5 million that was released on December, I think, 5th, 2023. And then the remaining was given in November of 2024. So now when we look back at Harry and Meghan's timeline, remember, Freddie Marquez had wanted Meghan to go to, or this is the story that she told, was that in July, they invited Meghan to go to some Afro-Caribbean Women's Day or something, and she couldn't. That's the story that they gave us. The chances of that being a lie is, pretty good. I think that this was in the works. Perhaps maybe the U.S. government or whoever is backing Harry and Meghan had been setting this up, and the planning started then to say, okay, we're trying to get some funds, and when the funds come in, then, we'll make the decision on planning the actual Colombia trip. And I think that's exactly what happened here. So if, let's say, Franny said that, oh yeah, making up some BS excuse that she saw Harry and Meghan's mockumentary and it inspired her because Meghan was such a warrior, no. I think that whatever entity that Harry and Meghan have been working with within the deep state did say that this is on target for, political change, and we need you to go here, and we need you to do some capacity building, and, you'll get paid handsomely. And this is where this money now is starting to come into play and how it's being laundered and stolen from all of us. But in any case, now, if we recall, the way that Harry and Meghan announced that they were going to Colombia really was through Franny Marquez, who had extended this invite to them. And then 2 weeks later, they were in Colombia. There's no way that within 2 weeks, Harry and Meghan went off to Colombia on this quasi-royal tour with all of that set up for them. Absolutely no way, especially when they had that seminar at the university with Maria Ressa. This had to have been months in advance planning, and it is possible that possibly when funding came in, this is when all of this started. So now when you look at the $2 million or the remaining that was deposited in November of 2024, that was when Harry and Meghan did that AI video for the first ever UN ministerial, stopping children violence. So it is possible that they knew that funds were coming and this is what they were getting. I would think all in all, Meghan and Harry got at least $3 million from the American taxpayer that went into one of those 11 shell corporations that they have sitting in Delaware, and possibly cash going out to some offshore account in whatever, island that they chose. But I do think that this is how they have been taking our money, because remember, when they show up to these things, they're not doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. They're doing this because they're getting paid, and the money is coming from somewhere. It didn't come from Colombia. Colombia doesn't have money to give like that to this couple. It definitely came from foreign aid, which came from the United States via, most likely, the UN. When you take a look at the things that Harry and Meghan have done in their so-called joke of a life of service, it conveniently aligns where there are resources and funding. I mean, I don't think that's coincidental. I don't doubt that now, since funds have been cut off and, we'll see where money is now starting to be allocated to, where they shift their priorities. I don't think they're going to remain staying and focusing on Afghan refugees. They're certainly not going to be supporting Ukraine, especially if no more money's going there. So what's next? Are we going to see Harry and Meghan all of a sudden have a heart and want to save all those missing children? Possibly, especially if resources are being given to it. I think that's the trick to understanding what Harry and Meghan's motivations are, where we see they start focusing. I mean, who actually believes that Meghan is really 43% Nigerian? I truly believe now that this was a story that they had to come up with to give Meghan an excuse to go to Nigeria to collect that cash. It's so ridiculous how the American people have been robbed blind for so many years. No wonder why the Democrats, as well as all these globalists, were so gung-ho to push censorship, because this is literally borderline criminal. And then you have the nerve of like the EU and Ukraine, as well as UK and people like Meghan and Harry, who are just angry now that we don't want to give any more money. We don't want to be funding your lifestyle, nor do we want to be continuing a war. And Zelensky had some damn nerve coming to the United States and disrespecting our president in his own house. Anyhow, what do you guys think? I'm going to go ahead and leave you with this clip because I just can't stop watching it. But leave your comments below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn
We-
good chance of
we
coming
are
out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak-
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times thank you to American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on out here. I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't, please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
that
what
wasn't
is-
with me.
it
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. 15 minutes later.
So long, farewell, our readers saying goodbye. I leave a sigh and say goodbye, goodbye.
I was such a fraud.